So welcome to identification of commonalities in a series of artworks. What the heck does that mean? Well, basically what we're getting at is when we look at works of art by an artist, they often work in series. So we're going to be looking at similarities between multiple pieces of artwork so that we can find connections between the work, their style, their color choices, as well as their subject matter. This worksheet that's connected here under Think Sheet 1 is a great place for you to jot down your ideas. You could also do that, of course, in a sketchbook. So I put an art series up on the screen because that you probably recognize. So I put a Monet. So artists often work in this style of a series. They make several artworks that are related to one another. They can be connected by subject matter, media, as well as idea. And so these three paintings all are basically the same composition. These maybe would be considered to be more like studies rather than finished works of art. But of course, Monet probably considered them to be finished. But what he was really interested in was that these are all of the Rouen Cathedral. And in this church, he's always exploring lighting, right? So looking at different times of day and how that light or the weather might affect the way we perceive color. So even though the subject matter might change, Monet's always thinking about color, time of day, atmosphere. So if we go back to Rouen Cathedral, right, maybe it's hazy, foggy day, maybe it's like really early in the morning. Here, you know, the sun is really low in the horizon. We can see from the deep shadows, you know, but with the difference between a bright sunny day and one that's more golden, maybe a little bit later in the day. So here, the weather is created by artificial locomotive steam, right? And then here we've got the fog and the rain in London. So he's always using brushstroke that is, you know, full of mark making. And so his subject matter tends to be always outdoors. He tends to have daubs of color, and his concept is to show the different effects of weather and time on color. Okay? So when you are thinking about similarities in subject matter, we want to think about the who or the what that is being portrayed. So you could think about the type of imagery, maybe the setting or location of that imagery, the type of lighting, your point of view, and you could even think about idea of style. So realism, abstraction, non-representation. So for this work, what do you think is the setting? So jot down your ideas. Where does this take place? Okay. When it comes to technique, how was it made? Thinking and focusing on media and style. The amount of detail, right? Is it very realistic? Is it abstract? Is it simplified? Is it distorted? Maybe they use a similar media. Monet always used oil paint. Color choices, and then how it was made. Things like brushstrokes, style, layering, and process, right? So what do you think the media is here? And what do you think his style is? This is the same student artist that we just saw. Right? So jot down some ideas. What do you think his media is? What do you think his style is like? And then lastly is the concept or the idea. What's the purpose behind the work of art? What's the inner meaning? Why are they using the technique and the media to convey that particular meaning? So thinking about why is he choosing to use the media, right? What kind of emotive quality does it have, right? So what do we think his work is about? So let's go ahead and just look back at his work here. Right? Where do you think he gets his imagery, right? Does he get it from his imagination? Is he getting it from his memory? Is he looking at books, magazine, internet? Is he taking his own original photos, right? These are the kinds of things that you're going to really need to think about when you're creating your own artwork, right? How will people know what your concept is? How will people know what your style is, right? And what is it that you're going to say? So notice how his work typically is in crowds, right? He does a lot of monochromatic, right? So lots of white, gray, and black, or white, like neutral kind of browns and black. He uses a lot of charcoal, and his style is pretty realistic, right? So what is he trying to convey through these things? Is he being voyeuristic? Does he feel like he's always looking and paying attention to people when he's in the crowds? Is he like people watching, right? So what is he trying to say? So what I did is I pulled some old AP Studio artwork. These are all students from around the nation, not necessarily students from our own school. And so on that worksheet, what I'd like you to do is to focus on those 3 questions, right? So you're gonna look at artwork number 1, artwork number 2, and artwork number 3, or I should say artist number 3. Artist number 2, and so on. And so when you're focusing on their work, what do you think is the similarities in subject matter? You know, what is the subject matter? What do you think the technique is? And what do you think it's about? So take some time to contemplate it and then push play when you are ready to go. So when we look at this artist's artwork, we really start to see how a student could take a style or a way of drawing and to push it to something else. When we look at things like this, we often think of like character design. And a lot of times when we look at character design examples online, we'll normally see a single object, a single figure, a single machine, and it will be just kind of centered, and it really just looks like a mock-up. It looks like a sketch. And probably what happened is the teacher said it can't just be, you know, the object. So how can you incorporate it? How can you make it a part of your world? And so notice how their characters are all somehow related to an environment that could be in this boy's bedroom, right? So is it on his chessboard, right? Is it on his desk, right? Look at the objects. You know, his love of making this character, maybe he's including the environment in which he did it, right? So here is basically the artist statement by the artist, and you can go ahead and take a few moments to read through that to get a feel for what his artwork is about. Okay, this student is totally interested in mock-ups and design, and you can see how they're showing their process in their artwork in order to create this sort of other world motor vehicle. And so you can take some time to read their score and what their artwork is about. And then lastly, this one's a little bit probably more difficult. It's probably a little less cohesive, but you want to think about what their possible subject matter is. And then you can read up about their theme. And so I know when I looked at this one, this is a little bit older, but it's a little vague. And so one of the things you can think about is when thinking about your own ideas is that what is your message really getting across? You know, this person is really interested in nature preservation. Do you get the idea that something's being destroyed, that something's being taken, that something is falling apart? Like, how could that idea be come across a little bit more in an interesting way? Right? So for your works, You know, the reason I showed this to you is I really want you to be focusing on how you can develop 4 to 6 works that are all based on this kind of concept of your style, your content. We don't want each piece to be a one-offer, being that I don't want them to all have different subject matter and different concepts and different styles and even medias. You could do 1 or 2 pieces and be unhappy and try a different theme. I'm okay with that. But you need to make sure that you make more than 1 piece in a style to really make sure that you're exploring how you can create a series of work.